Shalom, welcome to the Chai Center. I'm not sure what happened before. It seems like not everybody could see me, so hopefully this is better, so I apologize. So we've been talking about Jewish ethics and belief. Jewish ethics and belief is a this course could last forever, but we will attempt to teach in a way that you'll be able to in a way that you'll be able to gain without it going on forever. So this is the fourth one in the series. Each class is self-contained. Today's class is Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. So it's a biblical command. A biblical command, justice, justice, you shall pursue. The question is, what does it mean? What is justice? That's the first question. I think the second question that we can ask is, whose justice? What is justice? And whose justice? So hopefully we'll be able to clarify. The first interesting thing I believe about this justice, justice, you shall pursue, is that the Torah, God, the Bible, doesn't want us to be voyeurs, but He wants us to be active, right? Pursue, be active, pursue. Make sure that you're not just watching things happen around you, but rather you are creating things. You are making things happen. You are affecting change, if you will. Right? So Tirdof, pursue it. Pursue it. Right? Just like we're taught we have to pursue love and pursue peace, we also have to pursue justice. Now, justice is not our idea of justice. Justice is God's idea of justice. Justice is basically not up to the fickle mind, but rather up to a godly mind. How do we know what God wants? So that's in the Torah. That's in the Torah. So now there are exceptions to the rule. If somebody will die by doing this Torah command, this mitzvah, if you will, then of course the same Torah that tells you do this command is also the same Torah that tells you got to live by it, not die by it. But in terms of justice, so we know the Jewish people were very vocal. We're on the cusp, we're on the forefront of justice. I think about Martin Luther King, right? When he walked across the bridge, he was, if you right next to him, arm in arm, right, was a rabbi. I think of JFRED, the Jewish, I forget what it stands for, but it's all Jews. The ACLU is a lot of them is Jews, etc., etc., and they do wonderful work. However, because it's left up to their fickle mind, sometimes we can screw up. Specifically, I'm referring to just something I received last night. 96 members of the clergy. It was more, I think, Hebrew Union College and School of Music, and it was, and they basically wrote an open letter that we as Jews need to reevaluate our connection with Israel. That we need to recognize that Israel is guilty of human rights, and I think it was 93 to 96 rabbis. And now Israel's not perfect, granted, but in the course of that letter, in their pursuit of justice, they wrote we should stop funding Israel. We should stop funding political leaders that support Israel. Basically, throw Israel to the wolves. That's a perversion of justice. A complete perversion of justice. Now, and that is not okay. it's frightening. Actually, it's frightening, and I condemn them with my strongest condemnation from coming from me. I don't know what that means, but I'm the polar opposite. And I've said this before. The difference between 1939 and today is that, and we're about to, Kristallnacht was 1938, November, right? Coming up tomorrow night. The difference is Israel. If we would have had Israel in 1938, 39, 40, 41, etc., there wouldn't have been 6 million killed. So for a fickle mind to throw Israel to the wolves, right? I understand it's not perfect, it's not rosy, I get it. But to write an open letter for everybody to see, to say that we need to take a stand against Israel, or the Ben and Jerry type morons that don't sell to Israel, and Nike as well as another moronic company, is not justice. Is a perversion of justice. Is a failure of justice. They think they're being just. It's a dangerous game because they're putting a lot of Jews at risk. It's unjust. And it bothers me greatly they don't see it. I understand you want to network. I understand you want to go to Israel and talk to politicians. I get it. To put out a blanket statement that we need to reevaluate our connection and we have to rethink our support is obscene. So, whose justice? God's justice. And it's not my justice. It's not Orthodox justice. It's not Reformed justice, conservative justice. It's God's justice. God wants us to be a just people. Now, it's interesting, by the way. Tzedakah, which is colloquially translated as charity, is not the correct translation. So first of all, the word charity comes from the word, and I believe it's a Latin word, caritas. Caritas means from the heart. From the heart. So charity is voluntary. Charity is coming from your heart. Charity is something that it's voluntary. You can do it if you want. It's nice if you do it. But that is not tzedakah. Tzedakah comes from the word justice, not charity. Charity is voluntary. Tzedakah is not voluntary. Tzedakah is you're biblically obligated to give charity. You're biblically obligated to give a minimum of 10% charity. I always say 10% to the Chai Sena. Tongue in cheek. But you're obligated. It's not a voluntary. It's not a feel good. Yeah, you may feel good doing it, but it's not up to you. It's 10%. Right? And you can give more, but you can't give less. And in fact, if you don't give charity, it's unjust. Eat them apples. So it's not a voluntary charity. Charity, according to Judaism, is not voluntary. It's a must. It's an obligation. Right? And so we do it. We do it, and we do it because we have to. Fringe benefit is that it feels good. Fringe benefit is that it helps society. Fringe benefit is that we really can make a difference in people's lives, etc. But it's not voluntary, right? And in fact, if you think about it, it's two polar opposites. Charity is not an obligation. Tzedakah is an obligation. The twain shall never meet. It's two separate things. Now, in Judaism, we've always we have charity from the very, very beginning. Before we became a people. Abraham, the father of all nations, not just the Jewish people, but the father of everybody out there, right? Abraham, when God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Amorah, and God said to Abraham, I'm going to destroy him. I'm going to destroy it. What did Abraham do? Abraham, who had this prophetic vision, he had this connection with God, and it was just, he saw God differently. He had this sixth sense differently than what you and I see, most people see. What did he say? He said some incredibly harsh words. He says, will the judge of the entire world not do justice? Right? Abraham, he was a just individual. And when he saw something that wasn't just, he spoke out. He didn't only speak out when he saw something unjust happen between two human beings. He spoke out when he felt God was unjust. Moses did the same thing. And Moses was specifically the Jewish chain. But Moses said to God, when God, after the sin of the golden calf, God said, Moses, I'm going to destroy everybody, and you will become a great nation. Moshe said, God forbid. Right? No way. Don't do that. It's not right. So, which is interesting, because yes, to see something unjust, to see something terrible happen, I hope if I lived, if I see racism or bigotry, I would speak out. I would hope. If I lived in the times of slavery, I hope I would be a ringleader to end it. I hope. I wouldn't be weak. But it's also, when you look at the world, we should be upset if we see the world go astray. We see the world go awry. And say, dear God, please. It may be granted. It may be. You can't blame Hitler on God. You can blame Hitler on Hitler. But that still can reach out to God and say, God, please create justice. Right? Do something. For whatever reason, we lost 6 million, and then now we have Israel, and we're trying to commit suicide by condemning it and throwing Israel to the wolves. So Abraham, Moses, and throughout our history, arguing with God is a Jewish tradition. We're not arguing for the sake of arguing. We're arguing because we see something that's unjust and it pains us, and we are told to pursue it, so we pursue it. Now, if somebody does something unjustly towards you, someone hurt you, a spouse, a kid, a parent, etc., directly to you, and it was unjust, it was uncalled for, you have the power to forgive him. You do. Right? Your spouse says something terrible to you, does something terrible to you, right? You can forgive. Right? You can forgive. Forgiveness is an ethic and a value which we're not going to talk about here right now, but you can forgive. A child does something terrible. You do something to a child. There can be forgiveness. By the way, we discussed this last time, parental abuse of children. That's a whole separate equation of what you can't. The parent can't just say, I'm sorry, child, and everything continues on as normal. I'm not saying that at all. But someone does something hurtful to you, you can forgive them. Yes, what you did was unjust, and I will. I've decided that in the interest of moving on, in the interest of being merciful, because God is merciful, I'm going to forgive you. What if somebody does something unjust to your people, to your family, to your community? Can you as an individual forgive an injustice? And the answer to that, my dear friends, is no. Is no. Could I, me, individual, right, forgive a Hitler? Could I forgive a Stalin? Could I forgive Saddam Hussein, who sent 39 Scots to Israel? Can I forgive Yasser Arafat? Can I forgive? No, I can't forgive. Absolutely not. right? Now, is that revenge? I refuse to forgive Yasser Arafat, and I don't, let him rot in his grave. I can't forgive him. Is that revenge? Is that a bad quality? So the answer to that is I can't forgive. I can only forgive if he hurt me. But I cannot forgive the injustice he did to others. I can't. It's wrong. It's unjust for me to forgive the injustice that he did to the public. If he slapped me across the face, I could forgive him. If he stabbed me, I could forgive him. If he shot a bullet and I'm a deathbed, I can forgive him. But only forgive him for me. And there's that famous book, The Sunflower, right, where Elie Wiesel was a Nazi on his deathbed, and Elie Wiesel was called to his deathbed, and he asked him for forgiveness for the terrible things he had done, killed people as they jumped out of a second or third floor window, and he was dying. And Elie Wiesel turned his behind on him and walked away. The scholars, many scholars in Sunflower and Sunflower 2, the second book came out, and they all condemned Elie Wiesel for doing what he did. Not one scholar was Jewish. Because if they asked a Jewish scholar, they would have said, no, Elie Wiesel did the right thing. You can't. You can't. It's so unjust to say, yeah, I forgive you, and you killed this one and 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 this one, and I forgive you. So the guy goes to hell, with a smile on his face that he's been forgiven. It's unjust. It's not right. So once again, it's not all about you. I don't know if you remember, Nobel Prize winner Desmond Tutu. That's who it was. Desmond Tutu came to Israel, and what was he? He was some type of a pastor or something. I forget it. Maybe someone here can tell me what he was. A cardinal, or I don't know what he was. And he made a public speech, and in his speech he said that World War II is over so long ago. It's time for us to forgive the Nazis. It's time for the Jewish people to forgive the Nazis that are alive today. They're old, they're frail. He said, it's over. It's over. And that was the gist of his speech. The Jewish people rejected him outright. He became like a persona non grata. How dare you ask us to forgive the sins of the Nazis to our people, to our families? How dare you? So, Desmond Tutu read the Jewish people wrong. He thought he was coming along all, with this, high and mighty justice, etc. But really what he was positing, what he was promoting, what he was proposing was completely unjust. Completely. Off base, Mr. Tutu. Off base. So, what is justice? What is justice? So justice is to correct a wrong or speak out during a wrong. Jews are very angry at Roosevelt, for turning a blind eye to the Holocaust. Well, we can't turn a blind eye to Darfur. We can't turn a blind eye either. The world. We have to speak out. That's justice. When there's anti-Semitism in the world, in our state, in our city, you can't just say, well, I'm safe. I live in a gated community. No. Justice is about speaking out. When there's racism, when there's bigotry, we have to speak out and we have to pursue justice. That doesn't mean, as we said earlier with these stupid activists, that we have to commit suicide. But we have to speak out. We have to be a champion of people that are treated unfairly, but not to our detriment and not at a dangerous level. in this letter, as I'm going back to this letter because I'm so infuriated, they talk about that Israel, is controls the border. Well, what do you propose? Let the bombers come in? What do you propose? Other than say Israel should not control the border, what do you propose? So it's asinine to say that Israel controls the border and it's a terrible thing. It's been proven you have to control the border. It's been proven if you don't put up a wall where they can't climb, they're going to come in and kill people. You have to protect yourself. That's more important. That's true justice. So justice is to make sure that your child is being treated fairly in school, that your co-worker is not being taken advantage of, that nobody's being beaten and you turn a blind eye, that you help the less fortunate, as we spoke of, tzedakah, not charity, tzedakah, it's an obligation, etc., etc. And I'm sure we can all come up with that definition. We can all come up with that definition of what justice is. Thank you, Lenny and Eileen. So it's a bishop to do. And I'm sure we can all come up with our own what justice is. If you have a question, by the way, you can pose it here, and we can, we can say if that is that considered proper justice or not. But one thing I do know is that if somebody's hurting, and they're hurting, and we can do something about it, it would be completely unjust if we didn't. If we can't do something about it, then we need to at least be sensitive. I was studying Maimonides. Very interesting. Maimonides was talking about the importance of giving tzedakah. Once again, not charity, but tzedakah. And he says, what happens if somebody comes to you and you're unable to give them charity, tzedakah? You're unable. You've given 10%, 20%, 30%, and now you just don't have. If you gave now, your family would suffer, which is you're not obligated to. So Rambam says that you have to turn them down with a smile. You have to validate them, because that's tzedakah as well. I'm sorry I can't help you. I can in the future, and I will in the future. I can even, let me see if I can make a couple of calls for you, but not that I don't have, sorry, get out of my office. Amani says further, when you're actually helping somebody, giving a donation to charity, to the Chai Center, giving a donation to a poor person, etc., it is if you give it with a scowl, you've just lost the whole mitzvah. Done. It was not just. It was an unjust act. So I find that a most beautiful Maimonides is that you got to help, and you got to help in a kind and caring way. So this has been your Chai Academy for today. If you have any questions, now's the time. You can always find a copy of this at thechaicenter.com/academy, or we now have it in Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, number of different places. Please help spread the word. The more Torah we can teach, hopefully, the more justice there could be in the world. Sorry for the delay. Facebook has its own rules and games of the way they set things up. Sometimes you just don't know when the shoe's going to drop. God bless.